Hello and welcome to My View from the Piano Bench. We do this on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. here on my Joe Holt's Notes YouTube channel, in addition to Piano for My Friends on Thursday evenings. Thank you to all of you who support and encourage me via the links you'll find on the support page of my website. You'll see a link to that page in the video description. So on Wednesday evenings, I tend to talk about my view. What I see or what I think or what I've experienced, and something that I hope is interesting and also not boring to musicians, so hopefully it plays the both sides. And lately I have been talking about particular tunes, at least some of the time, that I play often or that musicians play often, and just use those tunes as a vehicle to go stream of consciousness and talk about different experiences and ideas and concepts about music. So given that this is just a few days before Christmas, if you watch it before Christmas, I picked the Christmas song, or the chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And, it's a kind of a standout holiday tune. It really is beyond the conventions of the typical popular song, even the Great American Songbook era, which is its own thing and which informs jazz. And that's why musicians tend to like it. And musicians, including the ones who get the attitude about playing Christmas songs, like, I don't want to play Santa Claus is Coming to Town anymore. I don't want to play a song with 4 chords, blah, 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 right? That song gets an exemption. Another one that gets an exemption, right? Christmas Time Is Here. And the common denominator between both of them is the harmonic sophistication. Kind of different angles of it, which didn't really dawn on me until this morning when I decided I was going to talk about this tune. And I have a way to categorize it that, I can't argue against it, but I never really thought of it before. And I'll get to that in a second. Another tune that musicians don't mind playing many musicians. That would be kind of maybe on a tier just below Christmas Time Is Here and the Christmas song of the chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And let me play it through and then kind of talk about what's going on a little bit and what makes it unique and what makes it favorable to musicians, but still loved by everybody else. And that's the magic thing, you want to have substance, but not for the sake of substance, not for the sake of, okay, I'm grandstanding about what I know, about what I can do. You want to have substance in the delivery of something that touches people. And I think both this song and Christmas Time Is Here really pull that off. With some interesting, consequences maybe. But anyhow, let me play the tune. harmonically tuned, right? And maybe you've not thought about it, especially if you're not a musician, as being like a harmonically complex tune. But when you hear it, you might pick up on that. So the example I'm going to give is a little oblique. So we'll see if it works. And the position I'm going to take is, and again, this didn't dawn on me until this morning, that this is a unique Christmas tune because it was really written with the bebop jazz vocabulary, unlike any other Christmas tune. Now, it's harmonically, further on in the envelope pushing than other songs. You could argue the Christmas Time Is Here is even further along in the envelope pushing, but I wouldn't call that bebop vocabulary. I'd call that kind of post-bebop vocabulary. And now we're getting in the weeds. But when Charlie Parker and those guys began to kind of reconfigure the theoretical system in order to give improvisational advantage and kind of organize it so that you can practice like exercises and dexterity and do all sorts of, pyrotechnic things that weren't being done before because you practice them specifically. There is a particular configuration of what we call a 2/5. And tunes that are jazz tunes written, let's say, post early 1940s, tend to be heavy with 2/5s. Even like now, I'm not going to get into weeds about like what a 2/5 is, other than to say it's a particular harmonic unit that's kind of unique to contemporary, not contemporary, the transition between the Great American Songbook and bebop. And I was having an interesting discussion with a younger bass player on my gig a few nights ago. And of course, this is something that he never really thought of. He loves the 1950s era jazz, the Oscar Peterson Trio and stuff, and that's wonderful. But he really hasn't gone much before that. And I made the point to him that the vocabulary that we learn today as jazz musicians, and I exclude myself from that we, because I didn't learn jazz academically. And I'm, among the last of the Mohicans. Pardon my cough. I'm among the last of the Mohicans that way, right? Although it can still be done, but jazz has become such an academic discipline. And so jazz, prior to what Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and all those guys codified, doesn't exist in academia. The way that jazz musicians interpret songs, including older standards, is through the lens of the bebop vocabulary. So I guess the reason that I recognize this in this tune is because it's been going through my head to present to this younger musician what was kind of coming out of my mouth, stream of consciousness, which is how it works. And it's like, so if you want to get into those, big band era, Great American Songbook era, older tunes, you probably want to approach it the same way if you're a classical musician you would approach learning Bach or Mozart or Beethoven or Debussy, where they all would have different stylistic, cultural characteristics, style period characteristics. You would play Bach very differently than you would play Debussy, or differently than you would play Mozart or Beethoven, right? And I guess this might become a new little thing that I harp on with musicians. That doesn't happen in jazz education. So everybody learns standards. There's this really great sax player, Chad L.B. I won't try to pronounce his last name, but he goes by L.B. now. And he's a young guy. He might be 30-ish, maybe not even 30. And he's all over, I think they call him the Instagram jazz guy. He's all over social media with all of his instructional things for, here's how you play the standards, because you get these patterns, and the patterns are here and here and here. And yeah, okay, fine. But I guarantee you that anybody who wrote those older songs was not thinking that way. That way of thinking did not exist. Or I was watching a tutorial of one of the jazz education sites. A very, very advanced, very fine contemporary jazz pianists, two of them kind of hosting this. And they're talking about, 4 scales that every jazz musician must know. And of course, they're like, I don't want to say contrived scales, but they're not do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scales, right? And then it said the first one, Louis Armstrong probably played this one, the blues scale. Or there's little different variations on it. But that's sort of your basic blue notes. The Oscar Peterson kind of feel. And then he went on to the next one, the alto scale, and said, well, Louis Armstrong probably didn't play this one. Or maybe he did sometimes. And I'm like thinking to these guys, you do realize that Louis Armstrong didn't think in that way whatsoever? I mean, we are aware of the harmonic and the chord construction, and we play things related to that. Now, I'm not dissing the more contemporary jazz vocabulary. It is the gateway. It is the entryway to all those, jazz speak sounds. What I would call sometimes jazz speak and have here. And that's how they're constructed. But you still got to recognize that those older tunes were not written with those thoughts in mind, because those thoughts hadn't happened yet. It's kind of like the invention of the piano in 1709. And then you got to give it, number of years, a while really, for the piano to get in circulation, because it wasn't like we had FedEx overnight shipping across the ocean, or anything like that, or Instagram. I just invented a piano, and now somebody on the other side of the world knows, right? Or what's a piano? Ew, But the piano caught on very quickly, all things considered. But you consider Bach. The piano was invented right in the middle of his life, and he was certainly aware of it by the end of his life. But he never wrote for it. You could argue that his technical approach to playing the keyboard instruments was appropriate for the piano, so possibly influenced by that. So he would have been a transitional figure. But when you're interpreting Bach, one of the things that you're doing is you're keeping in mind, and this is actually a rabbit hole I didn't intend to go down, but you're keeping in mind that the characteristics of that period, what people would hear at the time, right, were that of a harpsichord, and the things a harpsichord could do, like not gradually get louder and softer, or not have as connected a legato despite the thud of the percussiveness of the piano. You have to pluck up the strings. And so not everybody agrees. And now, I don't like it like that. With just a bit of a split the difference, and not like, like Chopin or Brahms. Unless you're Glenn Gould, and then people either love Glenn Gould or can't stand him. Or on one site, Tone Base, which I really like, they interviewed one of the instructors, and they're like, when I hear Glenn Gould, I don't hear Bach, I hear Glenn Gould, right? So you have all of this attention, properly so, focused on, okay, where this music came from, there was a context to it, right? And in jazz, the modern education system ignores that. And I understand why, because jazz was not academically constructed really at all. It was just kind of passed on by living and doing and breathing and being there. Uh, and so it would require some work to kind of after the fact put together. And then there are some people who do, or like have tutorials about how to play stride piano and such. But how many times have I heard, since I kind of do it, that every jazz curriculum or in the college, or every jazz pianist at least, should be required to learn stride piano. Makes sense to me, right? And maybe that's the kind of thing that will happen. So hopefully you see the tie-in here, that this song is coming from a different place. Or even right? Now, I'm going to play a bebop tune. I'm not really, studied on bebop heads, melodies. But one that I do know and play, and I checked before I recorded this because I haven't played it in a while to make sure I did remember, is a Clifford Brown tune called Joy Spring. Now, listen past that. Excuse me 1 second. I just lost my concentration. How did that happen? Okay. So, listen past the fact that this is faster and swinging. And see if you can hear just harmonically the same kind of like ebb and flow movement. Not exactly the same chords, but the same idea that happens in the Christmas song. So this is called Joy Spring, and this is a Clifford Brown tune. Did I say that? I probably did. You get the sense because it's like the harmonic sand, the tonal center sand kicks like shifting under your feet. And then you go back, but then you move over here. All right? Now listen to the Christmas song again. Somewhere else. Then somewhere else again. And then work your way back. You're still moving all over the place. Around at least. So does that make sense? And so that tune stands out because of its construction in the way the early bebop tunes were constructed. Donnelly or Scrapple from the Apple or Joy Spring or all of those. The first two being Charlie Parker tunes, which I'm not going to play. And I just lost my train of thought. But I did pretty good, for a while. So let me reset my head here. And let's move on in this discussion about these tunes. So musicians, and in particular jazz musicians, like to be hip. And so, yeah, man, those are hip changes. I'll play that, right? And pretty much to a musician, Vince Guaraldi tunes are the same way. And even the not adventuresome Vince Guaraldi tunes, they were adventuresome in a different way. And they weren't really 2/5 bebop vocabulary. They were like the evolution from that. It's interesting. There's one Guaraldi tune that's just rhythm changes, meaning it's the chords that I got rhythm. Bridge. There's usually a tag at the end, which we'll leave out for this. So, I mean, it's certainly a nicely constructed thing, but it's pre-bebop vocabulary. But it's an important thing to learn. All musicians know it. So it's not considered. In fact, a lot of musicians look down on rhythm changes. Like, do I have to? But every time I played a tune from Guaraldi called Frida with a Naturally Curly Hair, which is rhythm changes. In fact, the first two A's just has a pedal. By pedal, I don't mean like pedal to the metal, but I mean just the same sound underneath. See how sloppy? And the rhythm changes bridge. Soloing over rhythm changes. I've got rhythm, or meet the Flintstones, or whatever. It's going to happen at some point, and I'll be proven a liar. But up till now, no musician that I've ever introduced that to, that's like rhythm changes, and I'll play this tune. And they say, it's a cool tune. Because I guess it has some hip elements to it. And Vince Guaraldi was, because I said this, I think, last week, that he is like mega important because he brought a new generation of audience to jazz, right? But he did it by bringing that more harmonic sophistication. I remember when I said altered scale, there's an altered chord. It's not, right? And a lot of his tunes were that. So if you watched last week when I talked about the Charlie Brown Christmas, I mentioned I've seen, like younger contemporary, not jazz, not really, limited harmonically skilled guitar players attempt to cover this song. And it's, you get away with it, I guess, if you don't care to hear the actual sophistication that makes the tune cool, right? Uh, but an opposite thing happened with the Christmas song. A couple years ago, I was in the local Tractor Supply, which I know there's Tractor Supplies all sorts of places, but this is a very rural area where I live, so of course we have a Tractor Supply. It's where the roses used to be. I miss the roses. Anyhow, and there was this country band, and with this country twangy singer, and they start covering this Christmas song, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And like the entire band was hip, man. The entire band like played all the changes, all harmonically, all there. But in an old country twang kind of thing, and it was the coolest thing. I'm just like grooving in the Tractor Supply, with the music going on ahead of me, but it's an atypical country approach to things, because that harmonic sophistication is characteristic of, that era of music. Now, do I consider, or have I even thought about this before, that the Christmas song is a bebop tune? No. But I don't know, and if any musicians are watching this and you want to dispute me or tell me that isn't constructed, as a bebop tune, talk me out of that. But I don't think so. Right? So, yeah. But that's not the tune I'm playing. Now, what I probably should do, and I think of all kind of topics when I'm talking here, and then I don't remember any of them, but I'm going to write myself a little note. Group bubble versus other. Because, in any of our paths, in our experiences, we have, seasons for this or that or the other. This happens here, and then that kind of defines it, and this happens over there. And I've had long stretches in my playing. It's so funny to call it a career, but long stretches where I primarily perform solo. Or if I did something with a rhythm section, it would be a left-hand bass thing, and I would not use the bass player. So, it's actually sort of my second language of my left hand. The comp or the play chords or the bass player underneath. I was talking to Amy Shook last night on the gig about that. That I do have, oh yeah, that's the other thing. So that I do have kind of my own sort of weird, unique, because I'm not following exactly how I was taught, because not all of it I was. Well, some of it I was. I'm aware of the conventions. But I said my, approach to comping is kind of like a leading tone salad. And she liked that. So I'm going to make that a topic, leading tone salad. I think that got started because we were talking about peppermint. And she said, that's salad. Because it's a leaf. Because we were talking about like peppermint milkshakes, but she's like, salad. Go Amy, right? So when you're playing in a group, and jazz musicians, with limited exception, and I'm a big one of them, pretty much all of their meaningful playing, or all their performance playing, that's not practicing, much or all, is done with other musicians, and that's kind of the nature of jazz. It's conversational, and so you kind of get in the mindset right away that you're kind of keyed in to how other people construct tunes. Now, with any tune, even a simple tune, there can be many ways to play it that are not wrong. And they're just ways that, when I play a tune for a while, I sort of fall into a way of doing things. And then I realize when I play with other musicians who pretty much do it the way most other musicians do it, that I'm like way off in left field, and then I can't always find my way back. Right away at least, because I'm not used to being in that environment. And one thing I'd like to do and that's actually a chord, that second chord. That second chord is not the way the song was written, I don't think. But it's what I've gotten used to, and it's the same chord. Except this time is here, that part, but a different, key. And then, of course, I'm doing my thing, and then I'm hearing, especially if there's a guitar player with me, I'm hearing the two of them, bass and guitar, go some other place, and I go, whoops, I forgot. Which is a kind of a common thing, one chord, a two chord, a three chord, two chord-ish. So that kind of thing you can just adjust to. But then we get to the bridge. I'm so used to playing it like that. Right? Which is kind of a hip ninth chord, major nine. Now to me, that makes all the sense in the world. And actually, both approaches to this make all the sense in the world. They're just different. Because they know that Santa's on his way. You could stop there, right? So that requires or suggests a resolution, a place where you can rest, right? Of course, there's more to the tune, but that sentence is a standalone, right? Now, it doesn't mean you can't keep going, and if you do, you just continue the progression. You're basically doing the same thing twice. But I got hit in the head the last couple of weeks with, at least not how these Baltimore cats play the tune. They don't resolve the 2-5, which again, you don't worry about it. And that's perfectly legit, right? And that's just basically saying, no, we're not done. Don't even think about being done. We know that Santa's on his way, and what? And that's what that promotes, right? So you're not done. Ooh. So that particular phrase doesn't resolve for twice the length. They know that Santa's on his way. He's bringing lots of toys and goodies in his sleigh. As opposed to, they know that Santa's on his way. Stop. He's bringing lots of toys and goodies in his sleigh. Stop. Both are valid. Here's the first one again. The one I would typically do. I wouldn't add more time, though. And the one that I'm been hit over the head with, because this is like the first holiday season that I'm playing a ton with other musicians and rhythm sections again, which is probably going to continue. This is not going to end. So this is a fun little evolution. So now, bit sloppy, you could hear the difference. And it makes perfect sense. And it's something that I've told you before, one of my classical piano teachers. Because again, all of my instruction up until in my 20s was classical. But every teacher I had would tell me anything they could think of for me to think of to help me improvise, because they knew that's what I did, and they all supported it because they all knew I could, right? And some of those things, especially from Mary Hinkle, were very influential. And one was that the mature phrase is the longer phrase. It's like when you're growing up and you start with "I want this" or "C spot run" or whatever, and then you get the pail being brought up the hill is full of hydrogen peroxide. What? But it's, and that's something that the 3-year-old wouldn't say typically, but the 9 or 10-year-old might if they want to be cute or something. So that is just like textbook right out of the advice that Mary Hinkle gave me. And I get it, and I've always applied it. But still, I like this better. Because I don't have to be done. And because I go right to another chord, I'm not done. So I like that. Then Santa's on his way, and then you get to chew on that for like half a second. Santa's on his way, yeah, oh yeah, and look, he's got lots of toys and goodies in his sleigh. Oh yeah, look, and every mother's child is going to spy. What are they going to do? Now there, and every mother's child. Then you probably do want to set up. Now, every mother's child is going to spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. Now I'm getting way too much in the weeds here, because that progression is like the one I play otherwise. So, let me stop and just say, there's all tons of subjectivity to making music. And I'm enjoying being in this little season. I've done it before. There have been seasons when I've done a lot of playing with other musicians, and then seasons when I've gone months and months without ever having a bass player and playing with a bass player once and then not doing it again for months and months, and always working full time. But now I'm back in that conversation and sort of the group thing, and occasionally I will try to move the needle and bring other musicians to how I like to do things, and typically it does not succeed, because there's just pretty much like, this is how the tune goes, knock it off. So I have to sort of take the deferential position of the way I have what I call solo piano bubbled myself has to be put over here, and now I have to just really be paying attention. And also, just because, this is going to sound weird for me to say this, or for you to hear me say it, I don't have the best ear. It's not that I don't have an ear, but it's not just a hearing sense with me. It's sort of an intuitive feeling, shape, context sense with me. And so, I might hear like the bass player, laying it down for me to get, and I'm not really grabbing it. Like, what? Like, don't ask me to tune the guitar. Kind of for the same reason. It takes me forever. So it's all interesting. But now I have learned now I'm sure you remember the distinction between that and that. So like next Christmas, pardon me again. Next Christmas, if I play that song, then you'll see if I finally succumb and I play solo the way I play with everybody else, because I give up. But my inclination is I'll probably just keep both on the shelf. Like an example, and those of you who watch regularly have heard me say this before, I just decided one day that to tenderly works like that, and it's not the way that it's typically played. But the way it's typically played just doesn't resonate with me. And I try to talk guys into it, and it usually doesn't work. Yeah, but that particular 2/5 doesn't really set that up to me. I'm in the weeds, sorry. I'll get out of the weeds. But this does. And you'll never tell me that that way isn't better. But then of course there's the, well, you want to go with the way the song was written. Yes, you do, but then you don't, because we're not playing classical music. We should actually be aware of the way the song was written. Maybe that's the way the song was written, and I've never really researched it. And now I am, the finger that was pointing out is overshadowed by the other fingers that are pointing back at me, saying, well, if I'm interested in deferring to how the tune was originally done, I need to know how every tune was originally written, and I need to find the earliest version of the sheet music. I need to learn all the verses. Actually, that would be ideal. And that's another thing, that there are so many things to practice, so many places to go. And when you're like further along in the process and you can see all of them, you think, if you're like a student, you're overwhelmed where you are. Imagine if you were aware of so much more. So you had like all these options available to you, but you still only had the same amount of time to pick something and do it. It's like, man, all this other stuff's getting away from me because I'm doing this. So I'm trying to like pick at this and pick at that and stuff. And that's all we can do, and just take something, some little small thing, try to master it, try to really get underneath of it and have it inform our intuition and all of that. So I'm probably talking out of both sides of my mouth, because this is a complicated thing, and it's a beautiful thing for me to be able to live here. I am more and more all the time grateful that this is my space, because this is a space where I can turn off all of the brain chatter and find something deeper, because that's what music does. And this is going to seem like a real detour from the subject, but I'm going to try to tie it in. And the reason that music is so special is because it does pull us away from that cognitive place. Unless we're talking about the cerebral music where you have to like listen with a scorecard, and then that's a whole different thing, and that's only going to ever speak to a small amount of people, and why many stripes of contemporary jazz have a small audience, and most of them are musicians. I'm not dissing it, but music has the ability to transcend that and to take us here. And it doesn't have to be simple music, but it does have to be communicative music. It has to be music that it's not an exhibition. It has to be music that's a conversation, even if it's with somebody who's just listening. Like if you're talking to an audience, are you talking, even if you're saying something really complicated to an audience, let's say, a general audience, not just like, graduate students of a certain subject, right? Are you talking with the idea of communicating to them and like getting some of the information and finding a way to say it so that they'll say aha and then they're with you when everybody's together? Or are you just like, I'm putting out this information, if they're too, not evolved enough to understand it, then they just have to sit through it. But somebody will get it, and if they don't, who cares, because this information is important. That's another way of doing it, and that is absolutely one of the approaches of the other side of the street of jazz. It's like, it's so important that this is what it is, that if it doesn't communicate with you, oh well, you're a loss. And, I can't buy that. I'm too much of a, I don't want to use the word empath, but that kind of goes along. I can't be not aware that something's going like this. But I also, and I've thought a lot about this lately as well, that music making, particularly for me, and it has been, we also come to this as we push ourselves out. See what I can do. Look at what I can do. And I am very purposely moving away as much as I can from any decision while I play to do something because I can do it. Because yeah, that's cool, and look, I can do it. The stride thing would be a big thing. Not everybody does a stride. I'm going to play some stride, right? But what's more important is for me to move in the dialogue that speaker is, talking to his audience, and he's keeping that audience in the room because he's being very careful to talk to everybody. And he's not dumbing down his presentation, and he's not talking kindergarten, but he's also not disregarding the connection. Yeah. And again, I'm in the weeds. I should call this in the weeds, but I won't. I'll call the topic the Christmas song. But you get what I'm saying, right? And this is another big thing with me, that any decision that I make, and in last night's gig, this is very apparent. I had one solo on one tune that really opened up. And one of the musicians was kind of making a big deal about it afterward. Don't do that again. Don't play such a good solo. I couldn't play after you. It's just sort of like a joke thing, which was cool. But I could tell it was open, right? And of course, when it opens up like that, it's not always open like that. And because then 5 minutes later, you want to get there and you can't, and then you start trying, and oh my goodness. And I'm recognizing what I'm doing. It's like, okay, this isn't happening. So I'm going to just kind of direct myself here, and I'll play these couple of notes. But then I would kind of like trip over something and say, no, wait, stop. And it took me the better part of a full set to realize, no, the space you're in is going to be a space of less notes. Wait for those notes. And I got in that last set, and then it's like, I waited, and then there they were again. And I was coming from that spot where I wasn't making decisions. All right, I'm going to stop all this, and hopefully some of that made sense. And let's just go back to this tune one more time. And hope all of this was applicable, and then take the construction of this tune, and not necessarily play a lot of notes, but enjoy the vocabulary of it's written. like that. What a cool tune. Though it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. And happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. But I'm going to assume that many people who watch us celebrate Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, happy everything. And yeah, we got a couple of days now. All the crazy gigging as of yesterday is kind of done now. And I can just enjoy Christmas, and I'll sit down the next couple of days and watch a Charlie Brown Christmas, 7 times now. Speaking of, Christmas time is here. So have a wonderful Christmas. If you're watching this after Christmas, have a good Christmas next year and enjoy your day. Yeah, right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to those of you who encourage me, and you encourage me just by watching. So see you soon, I hope. Timber.